Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of my interview series. Today, we have Holly Kim back. She did an interview with us a while back on trends in China. If you haven't watched it or listened to it, please do, because it's one of our most popular episodes. Holly is head of data business at Measure Commerce. She's originally from Korea, but has lived in China and the US, and is now focused on helping beauty brands make data-based decisions in the competitive and rapidly growing markets in Asia. She has a wealth of data at her fingertips, so we've got a lot to discuss today, and I'm very happy to have you back. Welcome back, Holly.
Thank you so much, Ali, for having me again today at your interview session.
Great. So I think today it would be great to talk about, we're not talking about China today. We've done a great episode on China, so we want to focus on some other key markets. So today I really wanted to take a look at, obviously at Measure Commerce, you guys have trends for loads of markets in Asia at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Where do you feel is the most dynamic at the moment?
I mean, China is one market that is really, really dynamic, but I feel like there are so many people who actually educate others on the China market data. So maybe I kind of want to shift that to focus on the K-beauty trends right now, because I just realized that by looking at the Korean data, Korean beauty trends data, the market moves really, really fast. And people are really sensitive at those new trends that's going on in the markets. And a lot of beauty brands are actually emerging as well as showing the new product launches. So I kind of want to focus our session today on the Korean beauty trends.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I think Korea has been a market for many years that has been an inspiration for many brands, and many different, and the K-beauty trend in the US, in other markets, also in China, has been developing. But I think there's been some recent news that's shifted a bit. So I would be really interested to hear about what you feel about the K-beauty trends at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, just like other countries, like Korean beauty trends are really also mainly focused on clean beauty as well. However, people talk about those kind of non-waste kind of packagings and stuff like that. But I feel that in Korea, when we talk about clean beauty, people think about the vegan trends first. And that's how the market actually has been generated over the past few years. Because clean beauty was something very new to us. However, people have used clean beauty as a big umbrella, and then underneath there are just clean the vegan trends. So it's kind of goes parallel to each other, unlike other markets. So I think that's kind of the biggest difference that I just see through the data.
That is really interesting, because a few years ago when I was in Korea, and I was obviously looking specifically at clean beauty, and Korea definitely seemed to be leading clean beauty in Asia. I mean, really, Korea was the only market that was talking about it, a few years ago. And a lot of Korean brands were using EWG as a rating system.
Right.
But even more so than in many Western markets. And Korean consumers, sophisticated consumers, understood a bit about what EWG was. And so there was this sort of, I guess that was the ingredient safety piece. Yeah. And it sounds like, from what you're saying, that it's actually progressed into this, from that towards the vegan. Yeah.
So here, we have so many brands, new brands that's emerging that focus on vegan. And I'm not sure if you have heard about the derma brand called Dr. G. It's a Korean brand, and they are also focusing on clean derma beauty rather than derma. So I think the clean beauty itself is actually fast growing, especially when MZ generations they're more focused and then more very open towards to this kind of vegan and clean beauty trends.
And what do you think is the motivation for Korean consumers buying clean beauty?
So I think because I just saw some of the reviews that through Olive Young, and like the other day, and then I searched the vegan as a keyword to see the review, and a lot of people think vegan is very safe. And yeah, not only for the product itself, but for the environment itself as well. And also it's because many Korean people think our skin is very sensitive, and they want something, a good skincare routine to protect their skin, right? So for the ingredient wise, vegan is something that they can trust upon when using it. An interesting review that I read the other day was that people assume that vegan product also have those kind of product smell very, it's not like very, the scent itself is kind of like more towards to mild and very planetary kind of scent. They expect that and then also purchase the product.
It's so interesting because obviously in the Western market, vegan is very much, obviously it comes from food, you know, so more and more people are becoming, what's happening in Korea in terms of the food space? Is there a big veganism trend?
Actually, like, I don't think veganism is a new trend for their food, but people are really obsessed on the exercising and being healthy. So generally, because of those trends, a lot of salad place and vegan place has been in the market, has opened in the market. And I also eat a lot of salad during the lunch break because like I don't feel like I consume enough those kind of vegetables. So I think that's becoming one of the trend, but not like vegetarian or like that as what we see in other countries in Europe or in America.
So not actually vegan, but this idea of the vegan representing a lifestyle, and that lifestyle from a food aspect, but also obviously into the beauty side. And when a brand is vegan, it represents the clean part, but also the environmental part. So that's interesting on the environmental aspect. How do you feel that Korean consumers are looking at the environment? Are they much more aware of the impacts now?
I think gradually, yes. And also NZ generation, they are really not like other like 30s, 40s, those kind of people, but NZ generation, they are really interested in those kind of environmental issues as well. But I don't think it's a huge portion, but I think still getting there. That's how I feel about it. Yeah.
And it's interesting that Korean brands are using, you know, they're obviously seeing this trend, and therefore they're getting, presumably they're getting vegan certified, are they?
Yes. Yeah. So
is EWG still something that they use? Yeah. So it's both, right?
It's both. So also the certificate itself, and also the other kind of packaging, ingredients, and all other aspects are also being used.
Very interesting. And my final question on this is, do you find that these new Korean brands coming through, are they really emphasizing their brand story and their founder story, or are they still very much product led?
Good question. I think it kind of goes both ways. Actually, very indie brands, new launching, those kind of indie brands, some actually do focus on the brand story, and the CEO or the employees of that company actually shows up in the commercials, like the media, not the kind of a TV advertisement, those kind of medias, but like crowdfunding platform such as What Is in Korea.
Mhm.
When you're promoting your product in those kind of crowdfunding platforms, they actually use those kind of brand stories from CEO and the employees to, and then they also use their products and then show, oh, this is good because of that, and this is actually working on your skin, and it's not harmful and stuff like that. But mostly still, I think we are still really focusing on the benefits and ingredients based driven.
Efficacy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is still a big distinction with the generally Asian brands versus Western brands. You know,
Yes.
Western brands are still heavily talking about their brand stories and their founders, and then well, Asian brands obviously more product efficacy led. So that's interesting.
And interesting part is that there are so many new indie brands that's actually doing really, really well in Korea. So even though like their pricing is also not that high at all, so it is very easy to try and test. Because and then after people are actually purchasing it and then apply on your skin, and people know this product is actually good. It kind of values money, so they keep purchasing those kind of indie brands as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. So in terms of coming out of those brands, what are some real hot trends coming out of these Korean brands?
I can think of actually two. One is what I mentioned about vegan, but this vegan trend is actually extending to makeup trends. So not only brands are focusing on vegan skincare, but also focusing on vegan makeup. And so many non-vegan brands are also launching vegan cushion. So I think that's something very new to me. And also another hot trend that I think we have is Shika. So Korea has so many brands and products that actually emphasize Shika, but this Shika was also being used in essence or cream, this kind of like very heavy and very concentrated level. But Shika trend has also shifted to cleanser. So many brands are also launching Shika cleansings and stuff like that. But behind all this, the background itself is that they want something calming to their skin and then to increase your skin barrier. And those kind of trends added with vegan.
Okay, so Shika, explain a little bit more about Shika. It's an ingredient.
Yeah, it's an ingredient. It's kind of like it's a planetary ingredient.
Right.
So yeah, it before, when we don't really know about Shika, like in Korea, people keep talking about Shika to reduce your acne.
Okay.
Yeah, but now like I think it's just if like people keep talking about Shika, you know, so there are so a lot of other brands want to really know about what's the next Shika, you know.
And you say it's linked
now mainstream.
You're saying it's linked now to calming because what you alluded to before about people feeling that they have very sensitive skin, and that is probably partially, I mean, there's a few reasons for that, right? Overuse of product, too many products,
exactly,
and also some sort of like surgery or other procedures that make your skin more sensitive, right?
Yeah, because like also I think because we use mask every day. We take mask every day, so and then the environment itself as well, you know, the dust in the air.
Because I think that's something that I'm also seeing in China as well, that real demand for products for sensitive skin, and then barrier protection. You mentioned that. So barrier repair and barrier protection are something that seem to be coming maybe across Asia or across more sophisticated beauty markets in Asia?
Yeah. So in Korea, the hot trend will be those kind of planetary extracts added with calming benefits, added with vegan. I think that's kind of like the key hot trend that goes on.
Very interesting, and I think that's that's a very different from China. So China obviously has some of these same trends, but that the plant aspect and the vegan aspect is not really there. Plant a little bit, but only and the vegan not at all, right? So vegan is not a thing. So it's very, I mean, it's not surprising that the markets are completely different, but it's interesting, and I think, as we were saying at the beginning, Korea does lead a lot of these trends, and so it'll be interesting to see where that goes in other markets around Asia. So definitely. I guess talking about that in terms of other trends that you're seeing gaining traction, or maybe the trends gaining traction in other markets in Asia, how do you guys look at that with the data you've got?
As I've briefly mentioned before, like Korean consumers are really, really sensitive at those kind of new things, new trends, and something they want to try something very new. Because I mean, I think that the challenges that we have for Korean brands in locally is that people talk about the same trends, right? Everybody talks about the same trends, and it's a very trending trend that everybody actually launches. So what are the key main value that we need to deliver to our consumer to attract them, and then to give an additional value to our products, right? But what I feel like by looking at the data is that rising brands, also for the steady seller, like they do have very main key driven keyword that actually attract their consumers. Even though like everybody talks about the vegan itself, like every brand talks about it, but still like really popular ones that actually do have key selling points, such as I don't know, vegan cushion, and or something like using the plant extracts. And everybody also talks about hyaluronic acid in Korea as far as the serum, but still like they talk about why their hyaluronic acid is different than other products. Like it gives very deep double layered kind of benefits and stuff like that. So I think that's something interesting that I would like to share, and as well as because the market itself is really, really dynamic here in Korea. So even though you're not planning to enter the market in Korea, but still it's a good way to actually do some of the market study to take a hint, and then maybe that can be implemented in other regions. Yeah, just like how we have used cushion or derma, this kind of theme was really, really popular. Very few, I think maybe really a decade ago, I think, the cushion itself. So maybe it will be really good market to actually to study from.
Absolutely. And I think we've talked about this before. There's not a lot of English language content on Korea. You know, China's different. In the last few years, there's been a lot more content that you can discover about the market, although it's still not very product driven information. Whereas Korea, I feel like, you know, there was this big trend of bringing K-beauty to Western markets, and that's happened, and a lot of people know about K-beauty from that. But in terms of really influencing the product development of some of these brands, I think there's some brands that produce in Korea, so that's different,
right?
But the ones that produce elsewhere, getting that intel is quite tricky. So that's very useful in terms of the data that they can access, right?
Yeah, definitely. And also one other interesting part was that a lot of those kind of K-beauty brands, like very indie brands, are doing actually well in Southeast Asia markets. So that's something I was really shocked by looking at the data itself. So yeah, maybe that's something if anybody want to enter the Southeast Asian markets, maybe it's also a good idea to explore and study the Korean trends, because Southeast Asia is like, yeah, absolutely, like really K trends are just like huge in Southeast Asian market. I mean, you are living in Jakarta, so
exactly. Exactly. That's here, just I think in terms of Korean culture, it is very popular, right? So K-pop, everything, Korean drama, everything like that is very popular. And from that, the beauty, of course, the beauty becomes very popular. And that is something that we saw in China, say 10 years ago or so, right?
Exactly.
And Korean culture is still popular in China in many areas, but just that sort of trend that we're on in Indonesia, but also Malaysia, other Southeast Asian markets as well, I think is very interesting for brands to really take note of. Yeah,
definitely.
And we've also seen like local brands here in Indonesia sort of emulating Korean. There's a lot of both retailers have Korean brands, and then also Indonesian brands are using Korean elements in their products.
Yeah. And one of our colleagues in our team, she's a local Indonesian, and she has done some of the research based on the Korean beauty trends emerging in those kind of SEA markets. And then one interesting point is that a lot of local Indonesian brands are also like following the Korean beauty trends, K beauty brands and products, but selling at a lower price. So which actually leads to those kind of local consumers to already know this trend has been emerged in Korea, but they can actually access way easier.
No, that's interesting. I think K beauty is also interesting because it, as we alluded to, generally has quite an accessible price point anyway, right? Like it's most of the brands are not high price points. So I think that's where in China there's been more competition from local brands coming through.
Exactly.
But certainly from a trend perspective, I think there's no question that Korea is still very, very influential in terms of product trends.
Definitely, I think so too. So it might be really good for utilizing to study the market itself, because we do actually have a client. They are not from Korea, but they are really interested in Korean trends because for the product development side. So yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think and I think Korea is it is something that all brand founders and owners should have have their a finger on the pulse of. So we've talked about this before. We need you guys to put out more content in English for people to and of course if they work with you directly, they have access to a wealth of data. So that's also an option.
Yeah, I'll try to post more about the Korean beauty trends in LinkedIn.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, thank you so much, Holly. I think there's lots of information in there just talking about the real continued sort of strength of the Korean beauty trends and how they continue to be really important in the total sort of world of beauty. And if people want, I'll put all the details below, and if people want to connect with you on LinkedIn, they'll be able to do it there. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me again.
No worries.